Hi quilters, it's Katrina from Sunshower Quilts again, and today's video is part 2 of my leaders and enders video. So right now I'll say, if you have not watched my leaders and enders video, please go back and watch that first, or this one won't make a lot of sense. So we'll link to that at the bottom of the frame. After I posted my leaders and enders video, I had several people ask me for a video tutorial on this quilt that I'm currently working on. So this is still a work in progress. And so I thought that's a great idea because this quilt does not look like it's made from my beloved 2-inch squares, but it actually is. So today's tutorial is on using your 2-inch square leader and enders to construct this block that you learned how to make, the 16 patch from your 2-inch squares, but also it's this block right here. Which is a really neat block, and it is also constructed with 2-inch squares. So stay tuned and I'll be right back with the construction of that. Okay, let's talk about constructing our X block, or I think it's also called a hatchet block, so 4 of them together. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a 3.5-inch cut square and your bazillion leaders, your 2-inch squares. So what you're going to do is, instead of, like in the last video, taking 2-inch squares and sewing down this way, you're going to take 1 2-inch square and your 3.5-inch cut square. You're going to place, let's get rid of those, you're going to place that 2-inch square on your sewing table, and you're going to sew from corner to corner inside the triangle. Now, if you're one of those quilters who is more comfortable drawing a line on the back of this half square triangle, or on the back of this 2-inch square, feel free to do so. That's completely valid. I tend to not to, because that's another step. So I'm going to take this and we are going to sew down the center of that square. Then the next time, you're going to use that as your leader. Next time you go, putting that through the sewing machine, you're going to put this. You're going to put another one on and sew down the other side there. So now you have something that looks a little bit weird, like this. At this stage, after you've done your piecing, you'll have a stack of these. Take these to your ironing board and you're going to just set that seam now. See how that nicely flattens it all out? Next, you're going to take your rotary cutter, ruler, and mat. Put your 1/4-inch line on your sewn line, trim, flip, threads, trim some more. And if you're a person who pieces minis, this is gold for you. If you're a person who pieces minis, you could have gone up the other side a 1/4 inch and then have a whole bunch of teeny tiny half square triangles. I am not. So I'm going to just now take this to my ironing board again and press toward your half square triangles. Give it a little press. And I use a dry iron, quilters, because this is now bias, and if you use steam on that seam, that's going to go whoosh and really curve outwards. If you use a dry iron and starch, you will get a beautiful, beautiful block. So from here, little blast of starch. If you want, this is a leaders and enders project, so sometimes I don't, honestly, but look at that. Beautiful work. I usually then just make sure that this is 3.5 inches. Sometimes there's a little bit to trim off, so you're just going to trim. And yeah, there's a little smidge of fabric there. Now you have a perfect hatchet block. From here, once you've done stacks of these, just piles of these, and I'm not very neat with that, as you know, you're going to sew 2 of those blocks together like this. Once you've done a whole stack of those, you're going to sew 4 of those together. So 2 of these, matching and matching. Once you have lots and lots of these, you're going to go back to your 16 patch again. And if you've been careful, these seams will butt. You'll be able to just put these together sew a 1/4 inch down here, and you'll get that unit. And that quilt, my X's and O's, or I think it's also called Crossroads, whatever works for you. As you know, most quilt blocks and patterns have multiple names. Once you have these two together, that's the 2 blocks in that entire quilt. And they're both 6.5 inches unfinished when they're together. So again, this square right here, quilters, cuts at 3.5 inches, and my leaders and unders cut at 2. So yes, indeed, I got my half square triangles from a 2-inch unit. Okay, so now that you've constructed your quilt top, flash forward into the future, I suppose, once I got the quilt to this stage, I think I'm pretty much done with the center of it, but I'm not very happy with the way that these triangles are just hanging and the way that the pattern just stops. So for a first border around this quilt, what I'm doing, I'm still piecing it, quilters, is I'm going to do a border like this so that the pattern is at least finished. So this block is constructed exactly the same, only with only one little corner cut off instead of both of them. So that's going to go right along the edge, and then I think I might do a 16 patch border around that again. We'll see. I haven't made up my mind. So you'll have to tune into the blog to see how this is going. And again, my blog is sunshowerquilts.blogspot.com, or you can join us on Facebook and join in the chatter, and that's facebook.com/sunshowerquilts. So I hope you'll join me on my blog or join me on Facebook. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them here. If you have any video ideas or anything that you'd like me to tutorial, I hope that you'll let me know. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.